Welcome to the Fascia-Informed Therapist, the essential podcast for occupational therapy professionals looking to deepen their understanding of fascia's pivotal role in therapy and health. I'm your host, Amy Mayer, an experienced occupational therapist, practice owner, and dedicated educator. Here we'll dive into the fascinating world of fascia, exploring its significance in the human body and its critical influence on occupational therapy practice. Each episode will bring you cutting-edge insights, expert interviews, and practical strategies to help you confidently integrate the science of fascia into your therapeutic approach. Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or just starting out, our goal is to equip you with high-quality, evidence-based, and fascia-informed continuing education opportunities that will enhance your skills and benefit your clients. So join us as we unravel the complexities of fascia and transform the way you practice occupational therapy. All health and wellness practitioners are welcome. Let's learn, grow, and evolve together. Hi, this is Amy, and this is another edition of the Fascia-Informed Therapist. Today's edition is going to be all about conversations that I had with clients this last week, and maybe my experience can help you, because in one particular case, I got a little schooled by one of the clients because she's like, I don't understand what you're saying to me. And I pride myself in being able to break things down and be super simple with people, because just because you're capable of using big words and complicated sentences, it doesn't mean you should use them with your clients, right? Dial it back, give it to them in a way that they can digest it. And generally, I think I'm really pretty good at that. And sometimes I'm so simple in my approach, I will forget like the actual name of a muscle or something in the body. And, I just don't use them on a regular basis anymore, because I want to keep things in a way that clients can get it, can understand it. I'm going to go to a different client first and explain something that I was trying to teach him. He came to his appointment and he's a person that's had back pain for a long time. Guy in his 40s, desk job, likes to exercise and move and, do all kinds of different things, but chronic low back pain issues, definitely one of those guys that kind of tucks his butt under and the low back gets flat. And he knows that. He's well aware of that and has been working on correcting that postural pattern for a while. But you fall into your habits when you get busy. And anyway, he has been going to traditional physical therapy as well as seeing me periodically, which is a great combination. And his PT has said he supports that. I don't always get that feedback with myofascial work, but and being an OT, but I'm finding that there's more and more PTs out there saying, yeah, do that. Anything that's going to help you accelerate your healing, great. Anyway, he came to me and he pulls out his phone and he opens this really cool looking app that has all these different exercises in it. And his PT told him that he should do these exercises. And he said, which ones do you think I should do? And I'm like, we kind of scrolled through, and it really was a beautiful app, and it had really good explanations and little videos that the clients can watch to try and replicate what they're doing. And I said, okay, after scrolling through them, I said, rather than telling you which exercises you should do and which ones you shouldn't do, rather, let's talk about the concept here that you're working on, and he's actually doing a really good job of it. I said, what are we trying to do with your low spine? And he's like, well, we're trying to recreate that curve. I'm like, okay. So when you don't have that curve, what's happening with your back? And he said, well, it's sort of flat, right? And he says, and I know I have a habit of tucking under, especially when I'm sitting. And I said, okay, so you're trying to avoid rounding in your low spine, flattening in your low spine. You're trying to recreate that nice curve where it should be, right? So scroll through those exercises there and tell me which ones put you in a position of a rounded spine and which ones put you in the position of what we're trying to work towards. And so he was able to scroll through there and say, oh, okay, well, this one is cat-cow, so maybe more cow, less cat. I'm like, yep. And then they wanted it showed to do child's pose when he was done. And I'm like, he's like, that one probably I shouldn't do. And I said, yeah, good job. You got the concept now. And then he scrolled through the rest of them and pointed out which ones sort of bring him into that curved, that what we're not wanting, and the ones that brought him like a spinal extension exercise. So he got the concept. And when you teach a concept, then the client can begin to decide for themselves which ones are better for them and which ones aren't. Now, we also talked about the concept of you want mobility, you're creating mobility. So cat-cow isn't something you should just eliminate out of your life. It's helping you create mobility in the spine, which is important as well. So don't totally give that up, but just spend more time in your cow and less time in your cat. Maybe pause at cow for a few breaths and then move into your cat, back into your cow for a few breaths. So teaching a concept is better than just saying, do these, don't do these. And he actually really appreciated that because that is going to help him make better decisions down the road. Okay, so the next one I wanted to talk about was also a client who's seeing physical therapy. She's got a shoulder issue. And the person that she was working with, and I never want to sound like I'm bashing any discipline. I really don't. And the other thing I totally recognize is no matter how simple or straightforward we communicate with our clients, we never truly know how they're internalizing and interpreting what we say. And then when a client goes to another therapist and they say, my therapist told me to do this, and we just, what did they tell you? No, you can't. You have to be really careful about doing that because you don't know what that therapist really said. You really don't. And if you really want to know, well, call them up or get whatever homework they were given in writing or on a video and watch it for yourself. And then you really know what the intent was and how the client is interpreting it. So with that little aside, the client told me that their therapist, their PT, not us, said, stop moving your shoulder. When you lift your arms, your ribs flared. And what she showed me was moving into a little spinal extension and the bottom of the ribs popping out. And she said, I was told not to lift my arms up because my ribs flare, and I need to work on not flaring my ribs before I work on lifting my arms. And I said, oh, okay. I said, yeah, I just saw your ribs pop up when you lifted your arms. And yeah, that's not the way it's really supposed to work. You should be able to isolate those two components. And I said, let's try this. And I had her stand there, got her weight in her heels, and I said, imagine that you're going to lock those ribs down. And let's turn on your core, lock those down, and connect the ribs to your hips through your core. And she got that. She understood that. And then I said, now slowly lift your arms and keep that locked down. Keep it locked down. Keep it locked down. Raise your arms. And she got to a certain point and it was really hard for her to keep it locked down. And I said, okay, then that's how far you move your arms now. And my message to her was, if you have a shoulder issue, you cannot stop moving your arms. You have to move them through the range of motion that you have available to you that is comfortable. And so she did that a couple more times, and then slowly she was able to expand that range of motion in her arms and still keep her ribs locked down. And in my mind, that's a better way to teach movement rather than making movement two isolated parts. Teach things together because that's how we actually move. And I kind of get what the other therapist was trying to do, and maybe their intent was to simplify it for her as well. But she's not going to go home and not put stuff in her cupboard. She's not going to go home and not reach on a shelf to grab a towel or reach for her coat on the hook or reach for her clothing on the hanger in the closet. She's going to continue with that movement. So if you can teach somebody to lock it down, then reach, then that reinforces a habit that she's going to be doing every day, all day long. What also happened when we were working together was she was moving her arms up, and I'm like, okay, let me backtrack just a second. She told me that she was doing an exercise at home that Caitlin had actually given her, and she was taking, we teach a shoulder rotation exercise, and oftentimes we start them maybe with a dowel stick or a yoga strap or maybe a really loose TheraBand. And she was doing it with a TheraBand, which can sometimes take you too far. And then if you've got too much tension on it, then it's going to pull you in ways that can be uncomfortable. And she was saying that after she did that, she just felt she hurt too much. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, and I know Caitlin, I know what Caitlin taught her, and she was likely misinterpreting it. So I said, okay, and I got her a dowel stick, and I said, let's dial that whole exercise back differently. And I'm going to give you a dowel stick to do this. So the exercise, just so you can imagine it, is you hold a dowel stick. I've got a 4-foot dowel stick. You're holding it lightly on the ends, and then you're going into shoulder flexion, and then you're trying to bring it behind your head and then all the way back down to your butt and back around to start to mobilize the shoulders and the shoulder blades and getting them and increasing your range of motion. And if you have good available motion in your shoulders, then you should be able to get all the way around and back up again comfortably. And of course she could not. So using a dowel stick it's more of a diagnostic. It'll stop people where they need to stop, rather than allowing them to move through that movement, which it's not bad to have her move through that whole movement. But if they misinterpret and they think they have to have tension in the band, then, and that's what most people are going to do, right? Most people are going to kind of fall back into that no pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. So I had her lift the dowel stick. First she locked it down, and then we lifted the dowel stick, and she goes, if I go any farther, that's going to hurt. And I said, excellent. So if you go half an inch further, that's going to hurt. She said, yes. And she had this sort of frantic way of describing that. I said, okay, that's good. That means your intuition is kicking in. Your intuition is on target. And that's exactly what I want. I want you to move until your intuition kicks in and you're sensing that it's going to hurt you if you go farther. And she said, okay, well, why do I want to go if it's going to hurt? I'm like, you only want to go as far as you can that feels safe and pain-free. She said, well, why if I can't go farther? And I said, because you have to maintain the motion that you do have. If you stop using your shoulders, you're going to start to limit your range of motion. And she said, oh, okay. So it didn't occur to her that was important, or she wasn't educated, or if she was, she forgot it. But she told me, I was told to stop moving my shoulders because they hurt and because I flare my ribs. Okay. Well, please move within the range of motion that you have. And I think that's an incredibly important concept, not just for shoulders, but for any other part of the body. And then I'll also throw in here, not just as we age, but also when you're someone who doesn't move a lot and you're trying to do an exercise, we try to do the exercise like the picture. We try to do the exercise like the video. And we often try to do it that way on the very first try. So another concept that we often teach is don't go from 0 to 100. Don't go to what you think your deepest or furthest range of motion is. Like if you're going to do a squat, like when I do a squat, when I'm teaching a class or something, or just doing it on my own, I don't go all the way down into my deepest squat, which is pretty much all the way down, heels down, no butt wink, just to brag for a second. But you don't do that. I don't do that. When I know I'm going to do some squats, I go, if standing is 0 and a full squat is 100, I go 0 to 50, 0 to 60, 0 to 70. And then if I have any intuition or actual experience of pain, then I'm going to stay at 0 to 60, not 0 to 70, because if I go to 70, I know I'm going to have pain. But sometimes when you do the 0 to 60 2 or 3 or 4 more times, then all of a sudden your body starts to relax and you can move a little bit deeper and eventually get from 0 to 100. But teaching people that concept that you don't have to go to that full range right away, ease into it. Whether you're aging, whether you're sedentary, whether you're healing, that slow roll into the exercise is important. You don't have to just jump right into it in order to be doing it correctly. Ease into it. Okay, so the same woman I was speaking to, and she was telling me that after she had seen us the last time, she felt a lot of discomfort. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me more about that. What was the discomfort? What did you feel like? Did you have kind of an achy, fluish kind of discomfort, or did you have pain, like actual pain somewhere? And she said both. And I said, okay, well, let's address these one at a time. The first was the fluish achiness symptoms. And I was explaining to her how your fascia has 2 parts. And I know when she did, excuse me, I know when she did her I told her, I know when you do your evals with us, we give you so much new information about your body. And she said, yeah, I'd never heard of fascia before. I said, yes, we give you so much information about your body that it's really difficult to integrate that. And then we always send them some follow-up emails educating them and talking to them about why the homework we're giving them is important, and here's some resources how to do them correctly. So I told her, your fascia is made up of two primary parts. One is the web of connective tissue, and the other is the ground substance, or this water that moves through the web. Okay, so there's two parts. And then I also want you to think just for a second about all the cells that make up your body. All those cells need nutrients, and then they need nutrients to them, and then coming to them, and then they also function and they produce waste, and that waste has to escape and be flushed out of the system. I said, imagine that web is really tight in spots, and for you, it's around your upper back, neck, and shoulders. And it's so tight that water can't move around in your body. Water and other fluids, but let's just think about that water. That water is what contains nutrients, and that water also contains the cellular waste, and if that water can't move around very well, then it's going to get stuck in there. And those cells still are trying to function, so they're still producing waste. And so when you even do just a little bit to start opening up something that's been so tight for so long, all that waste can start moving through the system, and you can feel pretty yucky for a bit. But can you see, and some people will use words like toxins. Your toxins are going to move through your system. And I guess it kind of is, but it's just your cellular waste. It's just a natural function of your body. And that made sense to her. I said, that didn't last long, right? You weren't like sick for days. She said, no. And you guys did tell me to drink more water if I felt that way. And that helped. And then I also told her, hey, we just had another new client who came back for her first follow-up visit and said the exact same thing. And all we worked on was her neck and her shoulders and her jaw. But she had that overall sort of fluish feeling after being worked on the first time. And I'm like, that's not uncommon, but that's a sign that your body's been tight for a long time and things just can't move around. And your lymphatic system, and I might have said lymphatic system, needs to be able to help get all that out and move it through. So we're opening things up so things can work better. And that made sense to her. That made sense. So, and I said, well, let's talk about those sharper pains, the actual pain. And I'm like, tell me where you felt that. And she pointed between her shoulder blades. And I said, okay, well, here's what also happens after you get worked on, and we're telling you to start putting your weight in your heels and hold your body differently and moving your body differently. When we start to loosen things up and you start to do the same thing with different movements, your body's going to start to behave differently. And suddenly, if you're used to kind of this little bit of a forward lean and rounded shoulders forward, and then we're asking you to start stacking yourself up through that plumb line against gravity, then your bones are literally lining up differently. And if you have maybe a little disc issue, or maybe you're some tension on those nerves, you're going to get little bits of compression and potentially that sensation of pain. But we had already talked about using her intuition and moving through a pain-free range of motion. And I said, okay, so even though we may have told you to bring your shoulders back and stand up straight, if that's painful, then you don't have to go that full distance. Go right up to that area where you know if you go farther, it will hurt, but you still feel okay. You don't have to change your posture from 0 to 100 either. You can go part way. And that's an important concept when we're teaching people to get their weight in their heels, People try to bring it all the way in, and then they feel like they're going to tip backwards, and they actually kind of do this little, I'm unsteady kind of little movement, and maybe even an utterance to support that. And then we're like, okay, let's not go to 80% right away. Let's go to 50% and try that. See how if you can put 50% in the front of your feet and 50% in the back. And then, okay, I can do that. I can do that. So teaching people concepts over just telling them what to do and what not to do. Teaching people in ways that are going to help them translate that into daily life so they repeat simple things over and over again. And then helping people understand their body in a way that makes sense to them. So those are what I wanted to cover in this, and I hope some of those were helpful to you and maybe how you talk to your clients or you talk to your patients. So thank you so much for listening. I'm not sure if it'll be this podcast or the one before, but we are hitting 1,000 downloads any day now. And I'm creating this on October 26th, and I did not look at it this morning. Maybe I should pull that up really quick and see where we're at. Oh my gosh. We're at 990 downloads. That's pretty cool. So thank you again for listening, and I'm extremely grateful for all of you. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to the Fascia-Informed Therapist. It's been a pleasure sharing insights and strategies to help you integrate fascia science into your practice. I'm Amy Mayer, and I hope today's episode has inspired you to explore further and take your therapeutic skills to the next level. Remember, we're committed to creating and providing top-notch, evidence-based, fascia-informed continuing education that empowers you as an occupational therapy practitioner. Stay connected with us for more enriching content, and don't forget to check out our online courses to deepen your expertise. Until next time, keep expanding your knowledge, refining your skills, and confidently applying the science of fascia to your practice. Here's to advancing together in health and wellness.